Introduction. Friends, if you're ready to relive the most awkward, hilarious, and unforgettable moments of middle school, then today's video is just for you. We're diving into the world of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the super funny and totally relatable movie that first hit screens in 2010. And if you're visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with all our latest movie breakdowns, behind-the-scenes secrets, reviews, and more. Today's video is packed with everything you want to know about Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and maybe a few things you didn't know you wanted to know until now. We'll begin by talking about what this movie is actually about. Who is Greg Heffley? What makes him such a wimpy kid? And why do so many people see their own school memories in his hilarious misadventures? You'll find out all of that and more as we explore the storyline of this family comedy that has become a favorite for kids and adults alike. But that's just the beginning. We'll also tell you where you can watch Diary of a Wimpy Kid right now. Is it available on any streaming services? Can you rent it digitally? Is it showing on any satellite channels? We've got all the updated info so you can enjoy it from your couch with a bowl of popcorn. Next up, we're going behind the scenes to look at the technical side of the film. We'll explore the pre-production stage, including how the best-selling book by Jeff Kinney was transformed into a full-length movie. Then we'll look at the filming process itself, where it was shot, what kind of visual style the filmmakers were going for, and how they brought the cartoonish charm of the book to life on screen. We'll also dive into post-production, the editing, the effects, and how the final version came together before its big release. We'll talk numbers too. What was the budget for Diary of a Wimpy Kid? Was it a risky investment, or a sure thing? And how did it perform at the box office? Did audiences flock to the theaters to see it, or was it more of a slow burn success over time? We've got the answers, and some of the figures may just surprise you. Of course, we'll also go over the story of the film in a quick and entertaining summary, giving you just enough to refresh your memory without spoiling the fun if you haven't seen it yet. We'll touch on the main plot points, the setting, and the conflicts that make Greg's life so chaotic and so funny. Then we'll take a closer look at the cast and characters. Who played Greg, Rowley, Roderick, and all the other unforgettable faces from the film? How well did they bring these iconic book characters to life? We'll talk about their performances, which ones stood out, and what each actor brought to their role. Some might even surprise you with how different they are from their book counterparts. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a fun look at interesting facts and trivia from the making of the movie. Did you know some scenes were changed completely from the book? Or that certain casting choices were hotly debated? We'll uncover those hidden gems and share everything that makes Diary of a Wimpy Kid more than just another school comedy. It's a film that captured the awkwardness of growing up in the funniest way possible. So don't go anywhere. Grab a snack, get comfy, and stay with us till the end, because we're about to go on a fun, nostalgic ride through one of the most beloved middle school adventures ever put on screen. Let's get started. Plot and narrative. The story of Diary of a Wimpy Kid is structured like a series of diary entries. Messy, awkward, brutally honest, and hilarious. It doesn't try to be epic or cinematic in the traditional sense, and that's exactly why it works. What it captures so brilliantly is the everyday drama of middle school through the eyes of Greg Heffley, a kid who is equal parts ambitious, clueless, insecure, and endlessly self-absorbed. The narrative leans entirely on Greg's perspective, letting us live inside his head as he stumbles, schemes, and spirals through the social obstacle course that is 6th grade. We start with Greg preparing for his very first day in middle school. From the opening moments, it's clear that Greg has a very specific idea of what success looks like. He wants to be famous, admired, and remembered as a legend by the time he graduates. To Greg, middle school is not just a place to learn, it's a competitive jungle where status is everything, and survival depends on knowing the rules of popularity. He believes if he can just navigate the chaos and manipulate the system, he'll be on top. But very quickly, he realizes the system doesn't care about his rules. As he enters this new world, Greg is joined by his best friend Rowley Jefferson, who couldn't be more different. Where Greg is strategic and constantly trying to improve his image, Rowley is innocent, cheerful, and just happy to be there. Their friendship becomes the emotional heart of the story. Early on, it's clear Greg sees Rowley more as a sidekick than an equal. He thinks he can shape Rowley into the kind of best friend who boosts his social standing. But instead of Rowley rising to Greg's level, it's Greg who ends up falling flat, over and over again. The movie doesn't follow a single linear conflict but instead hops from one awkward episode to the next, like a series of comedic misadventures. One moment Greg is trying to land a spot in the yearbook, the next he's wrestling with public embarrassment in gym class, and then he's stuck performing in a school play dressed as a tree. Each of these moments is exaggerated by Greg's dramatic narration, turning small events into full-blown crises. His overreactions are the fuel of the film. A dropped lunch tray becomes a social disaster. A misinterpreted comment becomes a reputation-shattering scandal. It's absurd, but it perfectly mirrors how everything feels massive when you're a kid trying to survive school life. One of the film's most iconic subplots is the cheese touch, a completely ridiculous piece of middle school lore about a moldy slice of cheese left abandoned on the blacktop. Anyone who touches the cheese becomes socially radioactive unless they pass the curse on to someone else. It's the kind of thing only kids would take seriously, but in the world of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, it's treated with the same gravity as a cursed relic in a fantasy movie. The cheese touch becomes this running metaphor for how fragile reputations are in middle school. It's silly, it's over the top, and it's completely believable. As the story unfolds, Greg's schemes to become popular continue to backfire. He joins the safety patrol for attention, but gets Rowley in trouble. He draws comics for the school newspaper, but no one appreciates them. He tries to control his image at every turn, but the harder he pushes, the worse things get. Slowly, Greg starts to lose Rowley's trust. And in a pivotal moment, Rowley ends up becoming more liked than Greg, not by trying, but just by being kind, honest, and fun. This flips Greg's world upside down. Suddenly, his best friend is succeeding at the one thing Greg wants most, and it's not because of any clever strategy. It's just because Rowley is genuinely likable. This shift becomes the emotional core of the film. Beneath all the fart jokes and comic-style animation, the story starts asking a real question. What's more important, being cool or being a good friend? Greg has to face the fact that he's been selfish, and that maybe popularity isn't worth sacrificing real relationships. In the end, he has a moment of clarity, not a dramatic, life-changing epiphany, but just enough growth to realize that he's been unfair to Rowley. He takes responsibility, in his own awkward way, and tries to make things right. The film doesn't go out of its way to get too sentimental, but there's a warmth to the way it brings their friendship back together. It feels earned, not forced. Narratively, Diary of a Wimpy Kid is paced like a series of diary scribbles, short, fast, scattered, and full of voice. The use of Greg's narration is key to the film's tone. He tells the story like a kid trying to make sense of everything, often missing the real lessons while accidentally revealing his flaws. It's that mix of self-delusion and honesty that makes him such an interesting protagonist. He's not always likable, and that's what makes his growth feel believable. You watch him stumble, fail, and eventually take a small but meaningful step toward becoming a better version of himself. By the end, the story doesn't wrap everything up in a perfect bow. Greg's still figuring things out. School is still a battlefield. He's still a little selfish, still a little clueless, but maybe just a bit more self-aware. And that's exactly the point. Diary of a Wimpy Kid doesn't aim to show a hero's journey. It's just trying to show what it's like to be a regular kid trying to survive the confusing, ridiculous, and occasionally heartwarming chaos of growing up. Character development in Diary of a Wimpy Kid is like a slow-motion collision between childhood and the complicated world of growing up. It doesn't rely on big, dramatic transformations or tearful moments of self-realization. Instead, it's built on tiny shifts, awkward realizations, and a lot of stumbling. What makes the character arcs feel so authentic is how flawed, inconsistent, and believable the characters are, especially Greg Heffley, our main character and narrator, who spends most of the movie desperately trying to be someone he's not. Greg isn't a typical hero. He's not especially brave, kind, or selfless. In fact, for most of the movie, he's the opposite. He's obsessed with popularity. He lies, manipulates, throws his best friend under the bus, and constantly acts in his own interest. But that's what makes him feel so real. Greg is a kid who's terrified of being invisible. He's convinced that middle school is a social battlefield where only the cool survive, and he's determined to win. He doesn't understand yet that being well-liked isn't something you can force, and that trying too hard usually ends in disaster. His journey through the film is one giant experiment in how not to navigate friendships, reputations, and school life. But through every misstep, Greg begins, very slowly, to change. He's not handed a magical life lesson or transformed by a single emotional moment. His growth is pieced together through a string of failures. Every time he tries to climb the social ladder, he slips. He joins the safety patrol to look good, then loses the job after framing Rowley for something he did. He tries to gain fame by writing comics, only to have them misunderstood. He's humiliated in gym class, loses out in the school play, and ends up eating lunch alone after pushing Rowley away. These aren't just funny episodes, they're all little wake-up calls. They show Greg that his way of thinking isn't working, and that maybe the people he sees as uncool are actually doing just fine without trying to impress anyone. And then there's Rowley Jefferson, Greg's best friend and, in many ways, his opposite. Rowley is cheerful, goofy, innocent, and completely untouched by the pressure to be popular. He likes silly games, wears what he wants, and doesn't care what anyone thinks. To Greg, this makes him a liability. Greg is constantly trying to make Rowley act cooler. Don't play with toys, don't say weird things, don't do embarrassing stuff. But Rowley doesn't need fixing. He's already happy being himself. Throughout the movie, Rowley unknowingly acts as a moral compass. He doesn't judge Greg, doesn't try to outshine him, and doesn't understand when their friendship starts to fall apart. When Greg finally crosses the line by letting Rowley take the blame for something he did, it's a turning point. Rowley gets hurt. He walks away. And for the first time, Greg is left truly alone, forced to sit with the consequences of his selfishness. What's powerful is that Rowley doesn't grow in the conventional sense. He stays consistent from beginning to end. But his emotional strength becomes clearer as the story progresses. He forgives Greg not because the script demands it, but because it's who he is. That forgiveness is what nudges Greg toward real self-awareness. Greg doesn't become perfect. He's still sarcastic, still dramatic, and still kind of clueless. But he starts to realize that real friendship isn't about using someone to get ahead. It's about being honest, kind, and sometimes admitting when you're wrong. The other characters add depth and flavor to this emotional framework. Roderick, Greg's older brother, seems like a background nuisance at first. But he represents the future Greg, if Greg continues on a path of selfishness and ego. Roderick is rude, lazy, dismissive, and doesn't take anyone seriously. Greg sees him as annoying, but there's a silent comparison being made. Roderick's lack of self-awareness serves as a warning. This is what you become when you never grow up. Greg may not say it aloud, but his reactions show he wants more for himself. He just doesn't know how to get there yet. Then there's Greg's mom and dad, who offer a grounded view of what it means to be a kid in chaos. His mom in particular tries to guide him without crushing his spirit, encouraging journaling as a way to process his experiences. While her influence is more subtle, she represents the voice of reason that Greg usually ignores but sometimes subconsciously absorbs. His dad, on the other hand, is a classic sitcom-style father figure, slightly clueless, but supportive in his own hands-off way. Their presence reminds us that while Greg feels like the world is ending every day, the adults see it all as part of growing up. Characters like Fregley, Patty Farrell, and Chirag Gupta don't get deep personal arcs, but they each act as puzzle pieces in Greg's journey. Fregley, the overly weird outcast, becomes a temporary ally when Greg has no one else, forcing him to confront how shallow his priorities have been. Patty, the overly ambitious rival, pushes Greg's competitive side to its worst extremes, while Chirag's brief disappearance and dramatic re-entry shows how easily people become targets in middle school for the smallest reasons. These characters exaggerate real types found in every school, but they all feed into the central theme: Figuring out who you are and what really matters isn't easy when you're surrounded by confusing rules, expectations, and a constant fear of humiliation. By the end of the film, Greg hasn't achieved popularity. He hasn't transformed into the hero he wanted to be. But he has taken a meaningful step forward. He owns up to one of his biggest mistakes and does something for someone else, not because it will make him look good, but because it's the right thing to do. That moment, Greg taking the blame for the cheese touch to protect Rowley, is the culmination of all the lessons he's been slowly, painfully absorbing. It doesn't magically fix everything, but it shows us that he's finally starting to grow. Not because he was told to. Not because he wants attention, but because he finally understands what it means to be a true friend. That's what makes the character development in Diary of a Wimpy Kid so effective. It's not flashy. It's not perfect. But it's honest. The characters behave like real kids, sometimes kind, sometimes cruel, often confused, and always changing in tiny, important ways. Watching Greg navigate this messy landscape of social pressure, friendships, and failure becomes less about whether he'll succeed and more about whether he'll finally figure out what actually matters. And that's the kind of growth that stays with you long after middle school is over. The performances in Diary of a Wimpy Kid aren't just good for a kid's movie, they're the glue that holds the entire chaotic, hilarious, and occasionally emotional story together. Every actor, whether they're delivering a line, reacting with a twitch of the eyebrow, or just walking down a school hallway with the wrong lunch tray, adds texture to the story's world. What's most impressive is how well the cast, made up largely of kids, manages to play their roles with the authenticity of real middle schoolers without ever slipping into parody or feeling too polished. They lean into the discomfort, the cringe, and the full-body awkwardness of being a preteen, and in doing so, make the story hit far closer to home than you'd expect. Let's talk first about Zachary Gordon, who plays Greg Heffley, the self-proclaimed future legend and social strategist. Greg is a tough role to crack because he's not your typical likable lead. He's insecure, manipulative, and often makes awful decisions, not because he's evil, but because he's a 12-year-old trying to be someone he's not. Gordon doesn't just play Greg as a kid reacting to his world. He embodies the constant internal dialogue of a boy who's narrating his own life like it's a movie, complete with imagined fame, inflated self-importance, and dramatic voiceovers that make his small problems seem like world-ending crises. The performance is packed with physical comedy, Greg's slumped shoulders, panicked stares, overly rehearsed poses, and emotional honesty. Gordon's delivery strikes the right tone of overconfidence layered with fear, giving Greg a complex, relatable identity. He makes you cringe at Greg's choices but still root for him to figure it out. Robert Capron as Rowley Jefferson is the emotional core of the movie. Where Greg is all scheming and image control, Rowley is all heart. Capron's portrayal is joyfully unfiltered. He brings a physical expressiveness that's both hilarious and oddly moving. Whether he's belting out "Zooey Mama," playing video games, or twirling down the street on a scooter with his cape flying behind him, Capron never tries to act cool, and that's exactly what makes his performance so memorable. Rowley is genuine in every moment. He doesn't posture, doesn't judge, and doesn't play along with Greg's plans unless he's genuinely excited. His facial expressions alone say everything. His joy when Greg laughs at his jokes, his confusion when Greg gets angry at him for being himself, and the heartbreak when their friendship falters. Capron brings out Rowley's vulnerability and quiet strength. When he stands up for himself, it doesn't feel dramatic. It feels right. His performance shows that sometimes the strongest character is the one who never compromises who they are. Devon Bostick's Roderick is chaos in human form. He's every older sibling who never misses a chance to ruin your day, and he does it with style. Bostick plays Roderick like a walking eye roll. His body language is pure slouch. He lumbers around the house with a band t-shirt and a smirk, constantly looking like he just woke up, even if it's the middle of the afternoon. He's mean to Greg, but not in a villainous way, more like a lazy lion occasionally swatting at a fly for fun. Every line he delivers has this half-sarcastic, half-disinterested tone that makes you laugh even as Greg cringes. What Bostick nails is the fact that Roderick doesn't care about the world Greg obsesses over. He's older, cooler in his own messy way, and completely unbothered by Greg's need for attention. That contrast adds an extra layer of comedy to every scene they share. It's a sibling rivalry where only one side takes it seriously, and that imbalance is endlessly entertaining. The rest of the supporting cast may not have as much screen time, but they never feel like filler. Lane McNeil as Patty Farrell is a force of nature. She's the overachiever with a clipboard and a glare, someone who treats the school play like an Oscar campaign. McNeil brings intensity to every scene, delivering her lines with a kind of cheerful menace that makes Patty both funny and slightly terrifying. She's not a bully in the traditional sense, she's just so aggressively competent that Greg can't stand her. What makes her performance pop is the way she never breaks. While Greg flails through life, Patty is laser-focused and unshakable, and that makes every one of their confrontations more enjoyable. Grayson Russell as Fregley, meanwhile, is a comic grenade. He explodes into scenes with no warning, no filter, and no sense of social boundaries. Russell doesn't just act weird, he commits to weird. The twitchy hands, the sudden squeals, the unsettling smiles. He's like a cartoon character set loose in a live-action movie. But it works because the film leans into Fregley's role as the outsider's outsider. He's not there to grow or change. He's there to make Greg uncomfortable, challenge the rigid rules of popularity, and remind everyone that the world doesn't end if you're a little different. Russell's fearless performance makes Fregley unforgettable, not because he changes the story, but because he adds a layer of unhinged fun to it. Even the adults bring their own flavor to the story without overshadowing the kids. Rachel Harris as Susan Heffley plays the well-meaning, overly enthusiastic mom who tries just a little too hard. She's the type who buys educational board games for fun and cheers a little too loudly from the front row. Harris brings this bubbly, overly involved energy that makes Susan both supportive and mortifying, exactly how a parent appears to a middle schooler. Steve Zahn as Frank Heffley delivers his role with low-key comedy gold. He's the kind of dad who's clearly tuned out most of the drama but occasionally lobs in a comment that reminds you he's still paying attention. His mix of confusion, pride, and mild exasperation creates some great subtle laughs, especially in contrast to the more expressive kids. The real magic, though, is how all these performances work together. There's a rhythm to the interactions, a chemistry that makes the school hallways and family dinners feel lived in and real. These characters don't just exist for laughs, they reflect different ways of navigating the chaos of growing up. Some, like Rowley, do it with joy. Others, like Greg, do it with a lot of trial and error. And the cast brings it all to life with such energy, variety, and timing that even the most exaggerated moments feel rooted in something true. What you're watching isn't just a series of comedic sketches or a dramatized version of a children's book. It's a whole social ecosystem built on insecurity, identity, and trying and failing to figure out who you are. And none of that would work without this cast diving fully into the weirdness of middle school life. Their performances aren't polished in the Hollywood sense, but that's exactly the point. They feel real, honest, and just awkward enough to make you laugh and wince at the same time. The direction of Diary of a Wimpy Kid doesn't just serve the story, it becomes the story. From the first frame to the last, Thor Freudenthal directs this film with a clear understanding that middle school isn't just a setting, it's a whole emotional ecosystem. The way he captures the absolute absurdity of adolescence, without mocking it, minimizing it, or romanticizing it, is one of the most impressive aspects of the film's tone and style. Every moment, every scene, every awkward pause or sudden outburst is filtered through the chaotic, unpredictable, emotionally high-stakes lens of a sixth grader's imagination. Let's talk about how the mood is crafted. This is a film that lives in a constant tug-of-war between comedy and cringe, and Freudenthal never lets it fall too far into one direction. There's always something funny happening, whether it's the outrageous Halloween costumes, the slow-motion cafeteria disasters, or the school play that ends in a full-blown embarrassment tornado. But none of it is mean-spirited. Freudenthal's tone is mischievous rather than cruel, and even when characters are humiliated, it's never framed for mockery, it's just part of the awkwardness of growing up. That makes a huge difference. Greg's failures are funny, but they're also kind of sad, kind of relatable, and always recognizably human. The tone is anchored by Greg's voiceover, but Freudenthal doesn't rely on it alone to carry the mood. Instead, he uses music cues, camera angles, editing choices, and even silence to deliver the emotional undercurrent. When Greg feels like a genius, the visuals go slick and over the top. When he feels rejected or betrayed, the camera lingers longer, the lighting dulls slightly, and the momentum stalls, just like his mood. The film constantly shifts between high-energy sequences and quieter, more introspective beats, and the transitions are never jarring because they reflect the way a kid like Greg experiences the world. It's all either the best day ever or a total disaster. Visually, the film is bright, colorful, and slightly exaggerated, but not in a cartoonish, fantasy sense. It's exaggerated in a way that mirrors memory and perception. School lockers look taller than they should. The cheese on the blacktop feels like a relic of ancient doom. Teachers appear to tower over students. Everything has just a touch of distortion, enough to feel like the world is being seen through the eyes of someone who's still figuring out how to fit into it. Freudenthal often frames Greg in the center of the shot, reinforcing his self-centered point of view, but when things go wrong or he feels small, that framing shifts. He gets pushed to the side, cropped out slightly, or dwarfed by his surroundings. These subtle shifts in composition reinforce his changing sense of control without ever needing to be explained. The pacing of the film deserves a closer look too. At first glance, the movie feels quick and breezy. Events roll one after another like a highlight reel of middle school mishaps. But there's a deliberate rhythm to it. Freudenthal builds each moment with precision, giving time for the tension to simmer before unleashing the inevitable social catastrophe. And just when the momentum threatens to become repetitive or purely comedic, he pulls back and gives the audience a breather, a conversation with Rowley, a moment of reflection, a look of realization on Greg's face. These pauses are vital. They prevent the film from becoming just a collection of skits and give it the emotional continuity that makes the eventual character growth feel earned. Stylistically, one of the smartest choices Freudenthal makes is the integration of Jeff Kinney's original diary illustrations. These aren't just throwaway gags or fan service moments. They're woven into the storytelling fabric. When Greg's imagination runs wild, the movie doesn't just show us what he's thinking, it shows us how he's thinking. That's crucial for a character like Greg, whose whole world is shaped by exaggerated expectations and reality that never quite matches. The hand-drawn sketches, quick animations, and visual daydreams give the film its heartbeat. They ground it in its source material while also enhancing its cinematic personality. Another standout directional choice is the treatment of adult characters. Rather than making them the usual villains or heroes of a coming-of-age film, Freudenthal directs them with a light satirical hand. They're out of sync with the kids, often oblivious or exaggerated, but they're not caricatures. They're simply people seen from a kid's limited and often biased perspective. That creative decision keeps the focus where it should be, on how kids interpret the adult world around them, often getting it hilariously or heartbreakingly wrong. The same goes for the social hierarchies within the school. Everything is heightened and dramatized, not because it's accurate to reality, but because it feels real to Greg. The director never loses sight of that emotional truth. And then there's the handling of Greg and Rowley's friendship arc. It would have been easy to play their ups and downs purely for laughs, but Freudenthal directs those scenes with surprising sensitivity. When the friendship cracks, the film slows down. The comedy fades. The camera becomes still. There's space to absorb the awkwardness, the guilt, the loss. It's not melodramatic, but it's honest. That decision elevates the movie from simple childhood hijinks to something that resonates emotionally. The resolution of their conflict isn't just a checkbox in the plot, it's framed as a moment of growth, handled with restraint and sincerity. Every shot, every transition, every tonal shift in Diary of a Wimpy Kid reflects Freudenthal's clear, consistent vision, to make a film that feels like a diary brought to life, not just in content, but in emotional logic. His direction gives the film a pulse, a perspective, and a sense of organized chaos that feels uniquely true to the middle school experience. It's not just about what happens to Greg, it's about how those things feel to him and how they get remembered. And thanks to that layered, imaginative, and emotionally tuned direction, the movie becomes more than an adaptation, it becomes a memory. An exaggerated, doodled-in, laugh-out-loud, painfully relatable memory of what it was like to survive being a kid. The cinematography in Diary of a Wimpy Kid does something quite special. It translates the chaotic, confusing, and often overwhelming world of middle school into a visual language that is as awkward, funny, and relatable as the story itself. The camera doesn't just capture events, it reflects Greg Heffley's inner world, his fears, his fantasies, and his very human struggles with identity and belonging. The way angles, lighting, and framing are used throughout the film is subtle but highly effective, creating a mood that perfectly matches the mixture of comedy and emotional honesty that defines the film. Let's start with the camera angles, which are thoughtfully chosen to capture the feeling of being a kid lost in a giant world. Many scenes use low-angle shots to make adults, teachers, parents, and even bigger kids look towering and intimidating. This isn't just a stylistic choice, it visually conveys Greg's perspective of authority figures as giants whose rules and expectations feel impossible to meet. When Greg faces these towering figures, the audience feels that same sense of vulnerability and powerlessness that comes from being small in a big world. On the flip side, sometimes the camera shoots from Greg's eye level, making him feel more in control during moments of brief confidence or triumph, which makes the emotional highs more immersive. Wide shots are cleverly used to emphasize the bustling, chaotic nature of school life. Hallways, cafeterias, and playgrounds are crowded with students, and Greg is often framed as a small figure in a vast, noisy environment. This composition drives home how overwhelming middle school can feel, where social hierarchies swarm, and a kid can easily get lost or overlooked. Sometimes Greg is literally squeezed into corners or small spaces within these wider shots, visually reinforcing how trapped or out of place he feels. The cinematography turns everyday locations into arenas of tension and drama, highlighting the emotional stakes of ordinary school life. Lighting in the film does a lot of emotional work behind the scenes. For most of the movie, the lighting is bright and natural, supporting the lighthearted comedic tone. But when the story dips into more vulnerable territory, the lighting shifts accordingly. Cooler, softer light and subtle shadows creep in during moments of isolation, disappointment, or tension, like when Greg's friendship with Rowley hits a rough patch, or when he's confronted with the consequences of his own selfishness. These changes aren't glaring or heavy-handed, they're nuanced, helping the audience feel the shift in mood without needing extra explanation. Warm, golden tones light up scenes where Greg feels hopeful or triumphant, wrapping those moments in a visual hug that contrasts with the more somber ones. Framing choices also serve to underline Greg's emotional state throughout the film. When he's narrating his plans or schemes, he often appears centered in the frame, dominating the shot in a way that reflects his self-importance and obsession with his own story. But as things start to unravel, social plans fall apart, friendships strain, embarrassments mount, the framing changes to push him off-center or into tight spaces. For instance, in some scenes involving the infamous cheese touch, Greg is boxed into cramped, claustrophobic shots, with the moldy cheese looming in the background like a lurking threat. This visual metaphor takes a silly schoolyard game and gives it a real sense of menace and urgency, showing how a kid's fears can turn even the smallest things into major obstacles. The camera also becomes more dynamic during moments of high energy or stress. Quick zoom-ins, sudden pans, and fast cuts mirror Greg's frantic thoughts and emotions as he rushes from one disaster to the next. The kinetic camera work draws the viewer into the whirlwind pace of his life, making you feel the same breathless anxiety and excitement he experiences. These movements keep the film feeling lively and unpredictable, much like the roller coaster of emotions that come with being a preteen trying to navigate complex social dynamics. What truly elevates the cinematography, however, is how it blends seamlessly with the film's playful integration of the original book's illustrations and animations. When Greg's imagination kicks into overdrive, whether he's picturing himself as a superhero or dramatizing school social hierarchies, the cinematography supports these moments with creative shifts. The film occasionally stylizes live-action shots with exaggerated angles, lighting shifts, or visual effects that complement the doodled, hand-drawn animations popping up on screen. This interplay between real-world visuals and cartoonish fantasy helps the audience feel like they're inside Greg's head, where reality and imagination blur. It's a clever way of translating a graphic novel's unique style into a live-action format without losing the charm or humor. Even the smallest visual details receive thoughtful attention. The cinematography lingers on close-ups of subtle expressions, a nervous twitch of Greg's fingers, a flicker of embarrassment across his face, or the way light catches a tear or a smile. These micro-moments add emotional depth and help balance the broader comedic beats. A glance, a pause, a frame lingering a little longer than expected. These choices humanize Greg and remind viewers that behind the goofy antics is a kid grappling with very real feelings. Overall, the cinematography creates an atmosphere that's equal parts playful and poignant. It builds tension during moments of social danger, highlights the beauty of fleeting triumphs, and captures the uncertainty of growing up with quiet empathy. The camera is more than just an observer. It becomes a visual narrator that guides the audience through the highs and lows of middle school life as seen through Greg's eyes. Its angles, lighting, and framing choices all work in harmony to tell a story that's as much about perception and emotion as it is about events. In doing so, the cinematography helps Diary of a Wimpy Kid become more than just a funny kids movie. It becomes a vibrant, immersive experience that invites us to laugh at, cringe with, and ultimately understand the messy business of growing up. The editing in Diary of a Wimpy Kid is a fascinating piece of craftsmanship that expertly balances the chaotic energy of middle school life with the emotional nuances of growing up. Think of it like the pulse or heartbeat of the film, sometimes quick and racing with the excitement of a social disaster unfolding, and other times slow and steady, giving us space to feel the awkward silences, the moments of regret, or the quiet hopes bubbling beneath the surface. It's this ebb and flow in the editing that gives the movie its unique rhythm and keeps viewers fully engaged throughout Greg Heffley's tumultuous adventures. Right out of the gate, the editing grabs your attention by plunging you into the whirlwind of Greg's world. The cuts are punchy, snappy, and often rapid-fire, especially during scenes packed with physical comedy or social chaos. Take the Cheese Touch storyline for instance. It's edited with quick cuts, close-ups, and dynamic angles that make the moldy piece of cheese feel like an ominous villain stalking the playground. The pace in these sequences mimics Greg's panic, bouncing us from one comedic disaster to the next without giving us a moment to catch our breath. This type of brisk editing is crucial in capturing the manic, unpredictable nature of middle school rumors, fears, and peer pressure. It injects a real sense of urgency and fun into scenes that could otherwise feel flat or repetitive. But just as skillfully, the editors know when to pull back the reins. Not every moment is a frantic sprint, and the film's flow benefits greatly from scenes that breathe. During the quieter, more introspective moments, like the fallout of Greg and Rowley's friendship, or Greg's self-reflection after a particularly embarrassing blunder, the editing slows down. Long takes and more fluid transitions let the emotional weight settle in, giving the audience time to process the underlying feelings without rushing them through. This contrast between fast and slow pacing helps prevent the film from becoming a non-stop gag reel and gives it a heart that beats beneath the laughter. It's these quieter moments, edited with care and subtlety, that allow the story to resonate on a deeper level. The transitions between scenes are another standout element of the film's editing. Rather than smooth dissolves or fade-outs, the editors often choose playful, diary-inspired devices, like the flipping of a calendar page, doodles sliding across the screen, or abrupt cuts that mimic the way a kid's attention jumps from one topic to another. These creative transitions not only keep the narrative moving forward but also reinforce the film's connection to its source material, a personal diary full of sketches, thoughts, and snapshots. They provide a sense of cohesion to the episodic story, making the sometimes disjointed events feel like parts of a larger, meaningful whole. Watching these transitions is like flipping through Greg's journal, where one event leads naturally, if not linearly, into the next. Another fascinating aspect is how the editing mirrors the emotional roller coaster of adolescence. The rhythm of the film matches the unpredictable swings of middle school life. One moment, the editing zips through high-energy sequences, a chaotic school assembly, a disastrous school play, with rapid cuts that create a sense of exhilaration and chaos. The next, it slows to capture the awkward pauses, the nervous glances, and the uncomfortable silences that feel just as significant. This uneven pacing isn't a flaw, it's a feature, brilliantly illustrating how a preteen's world is made up of highs and lows, fast and slow, joy and embarrassment. Comedy timing is also a vital component of the editing's success. The editors expertly use timing to maximize laughs and emotional impact. Pauses before punchlines, quick cutaways to exaggerated facial reactions, or sudden changes in music all serve to enhance the humor. For example, when Greg tries to talk his way out of trouble with teachers or peers, the editing punctuates his nervousness by cutting between his panicked expressions, the unimpressed reactions of others, and his own internal monologue. These perfectly timed cuts create a rhythm that elevates simple dialogue into comedic gold. It's a reminder that in comedy, timing isn't just everything, it's the secret sauce. The film structure, shaped largely by editing, acknowledges that Greg's story isn't a traditional linear narrative but rather a collection of loosely connected diary entries and anecdotes. This episodic nature requires the editing to be flexible and creative in maintaining audience engagement without a straightforward cause and effect plot. The editors stitch together a series of misadventures, from school elections to Halloween catastrophes to friendship struggles, in a way that feels organic and true to Greg's perspective. Each episode flows into the next with just enough momentum to keep viewers curious about what will happen, even if the events aren't tightly linked. This mosaic-style pacing feels authentic and relatable, as it mirrors how memories and experiences accumulate in a child's mind. Moreover, the editors are masterful in knowing when to linger and when to cut. Emotional beats are given the space to develop, so moments of vulnerability, frustration, or triumph aren't rushed or glossed over. When Greg faces the consequences of his actions or confronts the awkward reality of growing up, the editing slows down to let those feelings resonate. Yet, just as importantly, the film never bogs down in these moments. It knows when to pick up the pace again and jump back into the comedic whirlwind. This balance keeps the story from feeling heavy or tedious, allowing the emotional highs and lows to coexist seamlessly with the humor and chaos. The flow created by the editing also serves to make the characters' development feel natural. Because the film moves at a rhythm that matches Greg's experiences, viewers can sense his growth and struggles in real time. The pacing accentuates the way Greg's ambitions, insecurities, and relationships evolve, not through big dramatic moments, but through a series of small wins and losses, all stitched together by the editing. It's a nuanced way to tell a coming-of-age story, where change is gradual and often messy. In short, the editing and pacing in Diary of a Wimpy Kid aren't just technical aspects of filmmaking, they're vital storytelling tools that shape how the audience experiences Greg's world. By balancing fast-paced comedic energy with slower emotional moments, using playful transitions that echo the diary format, and mastering the timing of jokes and reactions, the editing crafts a flow that feels both exhilarating and heartfelt. It turns what could be a simple children's comedy into a dynamic, immersive journey through the awkward, unpredictable roller coaster of growing up, making sure you're not just watching Greg's story but truly living it alongside him. The soundtrack and score of Diary of a Wimpy Kid play a surprisingly vital role in bringing Greg Heffley's world to life, wrapping the movie's chaotic, awkward, and sometimes sweet moments in a musical coat that's just as playful and relatable as the story itself. The music never overwhelms or distracts, but instead acts like an invisible storyteller, subtly guiding the audience's emotions and enhancing the atmosphere without ever stealing the spotlight. It's the kind of soundtrack that understands the tone of the film perfectly, lighthearted with just the right amount of emotional depth. Right from the start, the score sets a tone that feels youthful and slightly mischievous, matching Greg's attitude and the everyday disasters he navigates. There's an underlying bounciness in the music, with quirky rhythms and catchy melodies that feel like a soundtrack for a kid's daydreams, full of hopes, anxieties, and over-the-top plans. These playful tunes are sprinkled throughout the film, creating a sense of continuity that ties together the various episodic adventures Greg finds himself in. The recurring motifs in the score often mirror Greg's mood swings, from excited bursts when he's scheming or feeling confident to more tentative themes when things aren't going his way. What's particularly clever about the soundtrack is how it uses musical cues to enhance comedy. For example, during the cheese touch sequences or moments when Greg's plans unravel spectacularly, the music might adopt a whimsical, almost circus-like tone, highlighting the ridiculousness of the situation without mocking the characters. The light, upbeat instrumentation, often featuring plucky strings, playful woodwinds, and gentle percussion, keeps the mood buoyant and fun, reinforcing the idea that no matter how bad things get, this is a world where laughter is always just around the corner. But the score isn't all about bouncy, cheerful tunes. It knows when to step back and create space for the quieter, more reflective moments. During scenes where Greg faces real emotional challenges, like the tension between him and Rowley, or moments of loneliness and self-doubt, the music shifts into softer, more contemplative tones. These parts of the score often use slower tempos, gentle piano, or subtle strings, allowing the audience to feel the weight of the emotions without any melodrama. The use of silence is just as important here. Sometimes the music fades completely, letting the natural sounds and the actors' performances take center stage, which adds to the intimacy and realism of these scenes. There are also moments where the soundtrack cleverly mirrors Greg's inner imagination. When his thoughts drift into exaggerated fantasies or when he envisions himself as a sort of heroic or dramatic figure, the music swells or takes on more cinematic qualities, momentarily transforming the otherwise modest school setting into a grand stage for his daydreams. This contrast between everyday reality and Greg's heightened imagination is reinforced musically, adding another layer to the storytelling. The score seamlessly weaves in and out of these shifts, never feeling jarring but rather inviting the audience to experience the world through Greg's eyes. The soundtrack also complements the film's quick cuts and energetic editing, keeping up with the rhythm of the story. Its pacing often matches the on-screen action, accelerating during chaotic moments and calming during reflective ones. This dynamic relationship between music and editing helps maintain the film's engaging pace and emotional resonance. The score acts like a silent partner, supporting the visuals and narrative flow without overpowering them. Another important aspect is how the music underscores the film's themes of friendship, awkwardness, and self-discovery. The recurring musical motifs often carry a sense of nostalgia and innocence, which subtly remind viewers that this is a story about growing up, the messy, unpredictable journey of finding one's place in the world. The soundtrack's consistent tone of gentle humor and warmth reinforces this, making the emotional beats hit harder without ever becoming overly sentimental. Overall, the soundtrack and score of Diary of a Wimpy Kid are an unsung hero of the film. They strike a perfect balance between fun and feeling, comedy and heart, helping to create an atmosphere that's as engaging as the story itself. By blending playful melodies with moments of quiet introspection, and by weaving musical cues tightly with the film's editing and visual style, the music transforms the movie from a simple middle school comedy into a rich, immersive experience. It's the kind of score that you might not notice consciously while watching, but which stays with you afterward, echoing the ups and downs of Greg's unforgettable journey through the awkwardness of growing up. Diary of a Wimpy Kid is a movie that, beneath its lighthearted and often hilarious surface, explores a surprisingly rich tapestry of deeper themes and messages that resonate with audiences of all ages. It doesn't just tell a story about middle school mishaps, it offers a thoughtful, authentic look at what it means to grow up, to figure out who you are, and to find your place in a world that often feels confusing and overwhelming. The way these themes are woven into the narrative feels effortless and natural, never forced or preachy, which makes the film all the more relatable and engaging. At the heart of the film is the universal theme of identity and the struggle for belonging. Greg Heffley's middle school life is a microcosm of that tumultuous period where kids aren't quite children but not yet teenagers, caught in the awkward in-between. The film captures this transitional phase with a genuine sense of humor and empathy. Greg's endless attempts to be cool, to impress others, and to avoid humiliation reflect the very real pressure kids feel to fit in and define themselves socially. But what's refreshing is how the film shows the messy, imperfect nature of this process. Greg often fails spectacularly, and these failures aren't just played for laughs. They're moments that reveal the vulnerability and insecurity that come with trying to find one's identity. The film reminds us that this journey is filled with trial and error, and that it's okay to stumble along the way. Friendship emerges as another deeply explored theme, especially through Greg's complicated relationship with his best friend Rowley Jefferson. Their friendship is portrayed with remarkable honesty, showing that friendships aren't always smooth sailing. They fight, feel betrayed, misunderstand each other, and even drift apart at times. The movie doesn't shy away from these uncomfortable truths, And that's what makes the friendship arc so relatable. It captures the real give and take of relationships at this age, the jealousy, the loyalty, the moments of joy and pain. Importantly, the film shows that friendship requires forgiveness and effort, but also that it's a vital part of growing up. Greg and Rowley's ups and downs demonstrate that friendships are complex, sometimes fragile, but ultimately an essential part of personal growth. Responsibility and consequences are themes that run subtly but steadily through the story. Greg's tendency to dodge responsibility, scheme, and avoid blame often lands him in hot water. Whether it's trying to escape school duties, manipulating social situations, or dealing with the fallout of the cheese touch, the film gently underscores the idea that actions have consequences. This theme is particularly important because it's presented in a way that feels true to a kid's experience, not a moralizing lesson but an observation of how life works. Growing up means learning to face those consequences, even when it's uncomfortable or embarrassing. The movie makes this lesson relatable and understandable by embedding it in the humor and drama of Greg's everyday experiences. Family dynamics also play a significant role, adding layers to the film's thematic landscape. While the focus is often on school and friends, the interactions between Greg and his family reveal a realistic, sometimes chaotic, sometimes supportive home life. The film touches on sibling rivalry, parental expectations, and the occasional misunderstandings that happen in any family. These moments ground the story, reminding viewers that growing up happens within multiple circles, family being one of the most influential. The portrayal is neither idealized nor cynical but balanced, showing that family relationships are another complex puzzle kids must navigate as they mature. Another compelling theme is perception versus reality. Much of the film's humor and conflict arises from the way Greg and his peers interpret the world around them, often through a skewed or exaggerated lens. The cheese touch itself is a brilliant example, a silly, arbitrary social stigma that gains enormous power simply because everyone believes in it. This highlights how social dynamics in middle school are often built on fragile and sometimes ridiculous foundations. The film invites viewers to reflect on how misunderstandings, rumors, and peer pressure can shape behavior and self-image in profound ways. It subtly critiques how social hierarchies form and how they affect kids' lives, making a bigger statement about the nature of human interaction and acceptance. Humor serves as both a thematic thread and a coping mechanism within the film. The movie uses comedy not just to entertain but to soften the harsh edges of adolescence. It shows that laughter can be a way to deal with embarrassment, fear, and disappointment. This message encourages audiences to embrace their flaws and missteps rather than be paralyzed by them. The humor is smart and often self-deprecating, which makes the story feel authentic and relatable. It reflects the reality that growing up is full of awkward, silly moments that are just as important as the big milestones. What's particularly effective about the way Diary of a Wimpy Kid handles its themes is that it doesn't try to hit viewers over the head with any one message. Instead, it lets the themes emerge naturally from Greg's imperfect experiences. The film respects its audience's intelligence, allowing viewers to connect the dots and draw their own conclusions. This conversational tone makes the themes feel less like lessons and more like shared experiences, creating a connection between the story and the audience that feels genuine. The film also leaves viewers with thought-provoking ideas that linger after the credits roll. It encourages reflection on the challenges of growing up, the importance of empathy, and the complexity of human relationships. It reminds us that everyone is trying to figure things out, often making mistakes along the way, and that's okay. These ideas aren't wrapped in neat conclusions but presented as part of the messy, ongoing process of becoming who we are. In the end, Diary of a Wimpy Kid uses its blend of humor, heart, and honesty to explore themes that are deeply relevant to anyone who has ever felt out of place, struggled with friendships, or faced the awkwardness of growing up. Its success lies in how it communicates these themes with a light touch, making them accessible without diluting their significance. The film doesn't just make us laugh, it makes us think, relate, and remember what it was like to be young and imperfect in a big, confusing world. Diary of a Wimpy Kid takes a refreshingly understated approach to visual effects and CGI, choosing to use them as quiet helpers rather than flashy showstoppers. This decision perfectly suits the film's grounded, slice-of-life story centered on the everyday chaos of middle school, where the real magic comes from relatable characters and situations rather than bombastic visuals. The effects blend effortlessly into the world of the film, enhancing immersion by supporting the story and its unique tone without ever feeling intrusive or overwhelming. A standout feature of the film's visual effects is how it brings to life the beloved doodles and illustrations from the original graphic novels. These hand-drawn animations aren't just thrown in as decorative extras, they are thoughtfully integrated to become an essential part of the storytelling. Throughout the film, these simple, playful drawings appear on screen in clever ways. They pop up alongside live-action sequences, interact with the environment, or punctuate Greg's narration with humor and personality. This creative blend of live action and animation preserves the spirit of the books while adding a fresh visual dimension that keeps the audience engaged. The doodles serve as a visual voice for Greg's inner thoughts, exaggerations, and daydreams, giving viewers direct access to his imaginative mind. They effectively turn the film into a hybrid experience that honors its graphic novel roots while embracing the possibilities of cinema. When it comes to the film's CGI, the approach is decidedly low-key and functional. Rather than using digital effects to create spectacle, the CGI is employed sparingly to enhance the physical environment and support the narrative in subtle ways. Background elements, minor environmental details, or objects in motion are sometimes digitally polished or adjusted to ensure continuity and visual consistency. These small touches are expertly done, so they feel like natural parts of the scene rather than obvious digital insertions. This restraint shows a clear priority: to maintain a believable, tangible world that viewers can connect with, rather than distracting them with flashy effects that would clash with the film's intimate and relatable tone. Practical effects are just as vital to the film's visual language, especially given its focus on physical comedy and everyday mishaps. The film relies heavily on real sets, props, and practical gags to bring the story to life. Whether it's the spreading mess of the cheese touch in the schoolyard, the slapstick chaos during assemblies and plays, or the awkward physical interactions between characters, the use of practical effects grounds the comedy in a tactile reality. These elements help the actors deliver authentic performances because they're interacting with real, physical objects, which enhances the believability and humor of the scenes. The combination of practical effects with subtle CGI enhancements creates a seamless visual texture that feels both imaginative and authentic. The interaction between practical and digital effects is especially effective during scenes where Greg's vivid imagination blurs the line between reality and fantasy. For example, when animated doodles appear to overlay or interact with physical spaces, the blend of practical sets and visual effects creates a unique cinematic language that reflects Greg's perspective. This interplay adds richness to the storytelling, allowing the film to move fluidly between grounded reality and whimsical fantasy without jarring transitions. It's a clever way to visually represent the inner life of a kid whose mind is always buzzing with ideas, worries, and wild scenarios. One of the film's greatest strengths is how the visual effects reinforce its playful, diary-like tone. Instead of trying to dazzle audiences with technology, the effects serve as storytelling tools that deepen our understanding of Greg's world. The animations and subtle CGI act as a window into Greg's personal thoughts and feelings, while practical effects root the story in a relatable, everyday reality. Together, these elements create a visual style that is distinctive and engaging without ever overshadowing the narrative or characters. The modest scale of the effects is also perfectly suited to the film's target audience and story. Children and families watching the movie aren't looking for blockbuster-level CGI battles or fantasy worlds. They want to see characters and stories they can relate to. The restrained use of effects helps keep the tone light, warm, and accessible. The animated doodles especially add a fun, creative flair that resonates with younger viewers familiar with the graphic novels, while also charming those new to the series. Furthermore, the visual effects support the film's comedic timing and narrative pacing. They accentuate jokes and key moments, whether it's a doodle illustrating Greg's exaggerated fears or a subtle digital touch that highlights the chaos in a classroom, helping to sharpen the humor and emotional impact. By integrating effects in a way that complements rather than competes with the performances and story, the film achieves a harmonious balance that enhances the overall viewing experience. In essence, The visual effects and CGI in Diary of a Wimpy Kid demonstrate how less can be more. Their thoughtful, restrained use allows the film to maintain its charming, grounded vibe while adding creative flourishes that bring Greg's unique world to life. The blend of animated doodles with practical and digital effects creates a distinctive aesthetic that feels both fresh and faithful to the source material. This approach makes the film visually engaging and fun without ever feeling overproduced or distracting. The effects don't shout for attention. Instead, they invite the audience into Greg's perspective with warmth, humor, and a touch of whimsy, making the visual style a perfect match for the film's heart and humor. The set design and locations in Diary of a Wimpy Kid do an exceptional job of immersing the audience into the world of middle school and suburban life, creating a vivid, believable backdrop that feels as familiar as it is engaging. The film doesn't rely on flashy or extravagant environments. Instead, it embraces the ordinary and everyday settings that millions of viewers can instantly relate to. This grounded approach to production design is a big part of what makes the story so accessible and charming, inviting the audience to step directly into Greg Heffley's shoes and experience his awkward, hilarious journey firsthand. Starting with the neighborhood where Greg lives, the production design crafts a suburban setting that's detailed without feeling overdone. The streets are lined with typical houses, some tidy, some a little messy, with yards full of bikes, basketball hoops, and garden gnomes. These subtle touches add layers of personality and realism to the world, making it feel like a real place where kids play, families live, and the kind of everyday adventures that shape childhood happen. The inclusion of small details like weathered mailboxes, squeaky gates, or slightly faded paint on houses adds a lived-in quality that makes the setting resonate with authenticity. These design choices invite viewers to recall their own childhood neighborhoods, deepening the connection to the film's story. The home environments in the film also serve as important storytelling tools. Greg's family house is modest and practical, reflecting a typical middle-class family life. The rooms, especially Greg's cluttered bedroom filled with posters, sports equipment, and schoolbooks, reflect his personality, interests, and internal chaos. The way the set is designed to look lived in and a bit messy communicates volumes about Greg's character without needing dialogue. Meanwhile, the family kitchen and living spaces show the everyday rhythms of family life, the shared meals, sibling squabbles, and parental rules that form the backdrop of Greg's world. These spaces ground the story in the reality of home, providing contrast to the social challenges Greg faces at school. Speaking of school, the middle school setting is crafted with great attention to the sights, sounds, and social energy typical of that environment. The hallways are lined with lockers, bulletin boards are cluttered with announcements, and classrooms are decorated with colorful projects and posters, all of which combine to evoke that buzzing atmosphere every kid recognizes. The cafeteria scenes feel particularly authentic, capturing the noise, cliques, and lunchtime politics that are central to the middle school experience. The production design also includes key locations like the gymnasium, the playground, and the auditorium, each serving as a stage for pivotal scenes that showcase social hierarchies, friendships, and conflicts. These school settings are not just backdrops. They're active spaces that shape the characters' interactions and reflect the emotional highs and lows of adolescence. One of the film's visual strengths is how the set design uses props and environmental details to add humor and depth to the storytelling. The infamous cheese touch, for example, is more than just a gross prop. It becomes a symbol of social stigma and childhood superstition, and its presence on the school grounds adds a layer of visual storytelling that complements the script. Other props, like Greg's school supplies, clothing choices, and personal gadgets, are carefully selected to reflect the time period and personalities of the characters, grounding the film in a specific, relatable world. The use of these details enriches the narrative by providing context and humor, making the world feel dynamic and alive. The film also takes advantage of locations outside the home and school to expand Greg's world and add variety to the visual storytelling. Scenes set in local parks, shopping malls, family vacations, and even community events provide fresh settings that help to illustrate different aspects of Greg's life. These locations are chosen and designed to feel accessible and realistic, with familiar sights that resonate with many viewers. Whether it's the awkwardness of a family trip or the chaos of a neighborhood event, these settings add layers to the story by showing the diversity of experiences that shape Greg's growth. They also help keep the visual palette fresh, preventing the film from feeling visually repetitive. Visually, the set design embraces a palette of soft, natural tones that reflect the suburban setting, creating an inviting and comfortable atmosphere. The use of color is subtle but effective. Bright colors in the school gym or holiday scenes signal shifts in mood or energy, while the more muted tones of home life underscore moments of introspection or everyday routine. This thoughtful color design helps guide the audience's emotional responses and keeps the film visually engaging without overwhelming the narrative. Another interesting aspect is how the design of spaces and props helps to reinforce character relationships and social dynamics. For example, the contrast between Greg's home and the homes of other characters subtly indicates differences in personality, background, or social standing without explicit exposition. The design of the school environment similarly reflects the cliquish nature of middle school, with certain areas dominated by particular groups or activities, visually reinforcing the social hierarchies and tensions that drive much of the plot. The production design also cleverly supports the film's comedic timing and tone. Many sets and props act as visual setups or punchlines, whether it's a cluttered room that mirrors Greg's internal confusion or a hallway scene where characters' physical positioning adds to the humor. These design choices make the comedy feel organic and integrated with the story's environment, rather than relying solely on dialogue or performance. This integration enriches the viewing experience by creating a cohesive world where humor, character, and setting work together seamlessly. Finally, the locations and set design contribute significantly to the emotional resonance of the film. They create spaces where the characters can express vulnerability, joy, frustration, and growth in a way that feels real and intimate. The familiarity of the settings makes the characters' experiences more relatable, helping the audience to empathize with Greg's awkwardness, his missteps, and his small victories. By building a world that feels tangible and emotionally resonant, the production design invites viewers not just to watch Greg's story but to live it alongside him. In sum, the set design and locations in Diary of a Wimpy Kid do far more than provide a backdrop. They craft a believable, immersive world that feels authentically lived in and richly detailed. Through careful attention to the everyday details of suburban life, middle school chaos, and family dynamics, the production design adds depth, humor, and emotional texture to the film. This thoughtfully created environment helps transform Greg Heffley's awkward, hilarious adventures into a vivid, relatable journey that draws viewers in and keeps them engaged from start to finish. The dialogue and script in Diary of a Wimpy Kid truly serve as the backbone of the film, weaving together humor, heart, and a remarkably authentic portrayal of middle school life. From the very first lines, the script plunges the audience into Greg Heffley's world with a voice that feels immediate and genuine, as if you're listening in on the internal musings of a real kid navigating the chaos of adolescence. This is no small feat because capturing the awkwardness, insecurities, and absurdities of that age group in a way that feels both natural and entertaining is incredibly challenging, yet the film manages it with ease and flair. One of the most striking qualities of the script is its razor-sharp wit. The dialogue sparkles with a kind of dry, observational humor that feels true to Greg's character. He's both the narrator and the protagonist, delivering lines that are often laced with sarcasm and self-awareness. The humor doesn't come across as forced or artificial. It feels like the natural byproduct of a kid trying to make sense of a world that's frequently baffling and unfair. Whether Greg is commenting on school rules, social hierarchies, or his own family's quirks, his voice carries a mix of frustration, cynicism, and reluctant acceptance that resonates deeply with audiences of all ages. These witty moments provide endless quotable lines that have become iconic among fans, and they highlight the cleverness of the writing team in capturing the unique perspective of a middle schooler. But the script isn't all about jokes and punchlines. It skillfully balances humor with emotional weight. Beneath the laughs are conversations and moments that touch on the genuine challenges of growing up. Feelings of loneliness, the struggle to fit in, the awkwardness of friendships, and the complexities of family dynamics. These emotional beats are woven seamlessly into the dialogue, giving the characters depth and relatability. For example, when Greg and Rowley's friendship hits a rough patch, the exchanges between them feel painfully real, filled with misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and the vulnerability that comes with trying to hold on to something precious in a confusing world. These moments are never heavy-handed. Instead, they're delivered with a light touch that respects the audience's intelligence and emotional sensibility. The result is a script that is as heartfelt as it is hilarious. There are plenty of standout lines scattered throughout the film that define its tone and leave a lasting impression. These memorable phrases often encapsulate the awkwardness and absurdity of middle school life in a way that feels both specific and universal. Greg's deadpan delivery of lines about the cheese touch, his social missteps, or his often misguided plans to climb the popularity ladder stick with viewers because they're so perfectly timed and sharply written. These lines aren't just funny, they capture a shared experience that many people remember from their own childhoods, which adds to the script's enduring appeal. An additional layer of brilliance lies in how the dialogue plays off the distinct personalities and dynamics among the characters. Greg's sarcastic and somewhat jaded voice contrasts delightfully with Rowley's earnest innocence, creating a comedic tension that drives much of the film's humor and heart. Their conversations are a dance between cynicism and optimism, frustration and loyalty, which mirrors the real give and take of childhood friendships. The adults in the film also have well-defined voices, the exasperated parents, the sometimes clueless teachers, who provide an added dimension to the dialogue. These characters aren't just background figures. Their interactions with the kids add humor and context, showing multiple perspectives on the trials of growing up. The pacing of the script contributes significantly to its engaging nature. Dialogue scenes move briskly, packed with quick exchanges and well-timed punchlines that maintain a lively rhythm. This pace mirrors the frenetic energy of middle school life, full of sudden interruptions, shifting alliances, and rapid-fire social drama. The script's flow prevents the humor from growing stale and keeps the audience invested in the characters' journeys. Scenes often end on a funny or insightful note that propels the story forward, making the viewing experience feel dynamic and fresh from start to finish. What makes the dialogue particularly effective is its accessibility combined with sophistication. The language is straightforward and easy to follow, perfect for younger viewers, yet the humor and observations are sharp enough to entertain adults as well. This broad appeal helps the film connect with a wide audience, from kids who relate directly to Greg's experiences to parents who remember their own awkward adolescence. The writing manages to feel neither condescending nor overly simplistic, striking a tone that is respectful, clever, and inclusive. Integral to the script's success is Greg's narration, the voiceover that carries much of the film's humor and insight. This narration allows the audience intimate access to Greg's thoughts, fears, and plans, many of which aren't spoken aloud. The voiceover is filled with dry humor, candid admissions, and occasional brutal honesty, providing a layer of self-awareness that elevates the storytelling. It often breaks the fourth wall in a subtle, clever way, making viewers feel like insiders in Greg's world. This technique also enhances the comedic timing and emotional resonance of scenes, as Greg's internal commentary adds context and nuance to the unfolding events. The script also excels at capturing the nuances of dialogue that define middle school conversations, the half-understood slang, the awkward pauses, the bursts of enthusiasm or frustration, and the sudden shifts in mood. These details make the characters' interactions feel authentic and believable, which is key in a story so rooted in the everyday realities of adolescence. The naturalistic dialogue helps the audience suspend disbelief and truly invest in Greg's challenges and triumphs. Throughout the film, the script balances broad comedic moments with smaller, more subtle humor. From slapstick mishaps to clever wordplay, the variety keeps the tone lively and unpredictable. This diversity in comedic style ensures there's something for everyone and prevents the humor from becoming one-dimensional. The script's ability to juggle these different elements without losing coherence or pacing is a testament to its careful crafting. In sum, the dialogue and script in Diary of a Wimpy Kid are a masterclass in writing for young audiences that doesn't underestimate their sophistication or emotional complexity. The film script manages to be funny, heartfelt, and sharply observant all at once, capturing the unique voice of its protagonist and the universal trials of growing up. The memorable lines, authentic conversations, and insightful narration combine to create a script that not only entertains but also connects deeply with viewers. This blend of humor, honesty, and relatability is what gives the film its lasting charm and makes the dialogue a defining element of its success. Diary of a Wimpy Kid finds its sweet spot within the family comedy genre by cleverly balancing familiar genre conventions with inventive twists that breathe new life into well-worn territory. At its core, The film embraces the classic elements you'd expect from a coming-of-age comedy: awkward school experiences, social missteps, friendship challenges, and family dynamics, but it never feels like it's simply rehashing cliches. Instead, it takes these staples and filters them through the uniquely awkward and self-aware lens of Greg Heffley, a protagonist whose less-than-heroic qualities add layers of humor and realism that make the story feel fresh and engaging. The film navigates the genre with a keen sense of balance. On one hand, it hits all the recognizable beats of a middle school comedy: the chaotic hallways, the quest for popularity, embarrassing moments, and the ups and downs of friendships. These familiar situations act as a foundation that grounds the story, making it instantly relatable for anyone who survived, or is surviving, that tumultuous phase of life. But rather than relying on broad stereotypes or exaggerated caricatures, the film focuses on the nuanced, everyday awkwardness that defines Greg's world. This nuanced approach keeps the story from feeling predictable or formulaic, allowing the humor to emerge naturally from character and situation. Greg himself is a fascinating departure from the archetypal family comedy hero. He's far from perfect. In fact, his selfishness, naivete, and occasional cluelessness make him an anti-hero of sorts, and that's a brilliant move. This subversion of the typical protagonist trope challenges the audience's expectations. Instead of cheering on a flawless or conventionally nice lead, viewers are invited to laugh with, and sometimes at, Greg as he blunders through the social minefield of middle school. His imperfections don't alienate the audience; they make him more relatable and human, deepening the emotional impact of his journey and enriching the genre's traditional framework. The film's humor is its driving force, and it's executed with remarkable variety and precision. There's a delightful mix of physical comedy, witty dialogue, situational irony, and self-deprecating narration that keeps the tone lively and unpredictable. This variety ensures the comedy appeals to a broad audience, from kids who see themselves in Greg's struggles to adults who appreciate the sharp writing and clever social observations. The timing of jokes is impeccable, often underscored by the film's visual style, especially the clever integration of the book's signature doodles, which adds another layer to the comedic texture. These visual gags and narrative flourishes elevate the humor beyond mere dialogue, making it a fully immersive experience. Drama and humor coexist gracefully throughout the film, which is a testament to its sophisticated handling of genre blending. The conflicts Greg faces, while often small and everyday, like social embarrassment or friendship fallout, carry emotional weight that resonates deeply. The script doesn't shy away from the awkwardness, vulnerability, and sometimes painful moments of growing up, yet it balances these with enough levity to prevent the tone from becoming heavy. This nuanced emotional layering elevates the film beyond a simple comedy and gives it the heartfelt dimension typical of the best coming-of-age stories. Unlike many family comedies that rely on over-the-top scenarios or exaggerated villains, Diary of a Wimpy Kid keeps its stakes grounded in the microcosm of Greg's personal experiences. The drama isn't about saving the world or winning a grand prize; it's about surviving school, navigating friendships, and figuring out where he fits in, a narrative choice that lends authenticity and relatability to the story. This smaller-scale conflict approach allows the film to explore the complexities of adolescence with a light touch that feels genuine rather than contrived. One of the film's most innovative genre elements is how it seamlessly incorporates the visual language of the original graphic novels. The animated doodles and handwritten captions are more than stylistic flourishes; they function as an integral storytelling device that distinguishes the film from other family comedies. This fusion of live action and animation adds freshness to the genre by visually representing Greg's internal thoughts and frustrations in a playful, creative way. It's a clever narrative technique that keeps the film visually dynamic and true to its source material, while also enhancing the comedic and emotional resonance. The film's willingness to embrace awkwardness and imperfection is another way it subtly subverts genre expectations. Rather than smoothing over the uncomfortable or messy aspects of growing up, it spotlights them unapologetically. Embarrassing moments are front and center, misunderstandings spiral out of control, and the characters often fail spectacularly at their goals. This embrace of imperfection gives the story a raw honesty that's rare in family comedies, where characters are often unrealistically polished or idealized. It's this honesty that endears the film to its audience, making it feel like a genuine snapshot of the middle school experience rather than a sanitized fantasy. Pacing and tone play crucial roles in the film's successful genre execution. The story moves at a brisk clip, with well-timed comedic beats and emotional moments spaced to keep viewers engaged without overwhelming them. The balance between lightheartedness and sincerity is maintained carefully, ensuring that neither the humor nor the drama feels out of place. This balance is key in family comedies, and Diary of a Wimpy Kid handles it with finesse, making the experience feel smooth and satisfying from start to finish. Moreover, the film's script and performances work hand in hand with the genre's conventions to create a world that is simultaneously humorous and heartfelt. The characters' dialogue and interactions capture the rhythms of real-life conversations among kids and adults, which adds to the film's authenticity. The chemistry between Greg and Rowley, the tension between Greg and his family, and the dynamics at school all feel true to life, further grounding the comedy in relatable human experience. In essence, Diary of a Wimpy Kid doesn't just follow the family comedy genre, it enriches and reimagines it. By blending authentic, awkward adolescence with smart humor, sincere emotional moments, and a unique visual style, the film offers a fresh take that resonates with audiences of all ages. Its refusal to rely on clichés, its embrace of an imperfect protagonist, and its balance of humor and heart demonstrate how genre conventions can be respected and reinvented at the same time. This careful and creative genre execution is a big part of why the film stands out as a memorable and beloved entry in the family comedy landscape. Diary of a Wimpy Kid operates on many levels, and while it's best known as a comedic, lighthearted look at middle school life, it carries a surprisingly rich layer of social and cultural commentary that resonates with audiences beyond its surface humor. The film doesn't position itself as a heavy-handed critique or overt political statement. Rather, it skillfully embeds its observations about contemporary society, culture, and interpersonal dynamics within Greg Heffley's everyday adventures. This approach makes the commentary feel natural and seamless, engaging viewers without feeling preachy or forced, which is a tricky balance to achieve in a family comedy. One of the clearest social commentaries in the film revolves around the experience of navigating social hierarchies, especially in the microcosm of middle school. Greg's struggles to fit in, earn popularity, and avoid social pitfalls mirror the universal human desire for acceptance and belonging. The film uses these scenarios to explore how peer pressure and social status can influence behavior, sometimes leading kids to make questionable choices or feel isolated. This commentary is never presented as a moralizing lesson but instead emerges organically through Greg's misadventures, capturing the often confusing and sometimes harsh realities of youth social dynamics. The subtle critique of these social structures resonates with anyone who's experienced the complicated dance of fitting in and standing out in group settings, making the film relatable across generations. Family dynamics provide another fertile ground for cultural exploration. The film portrays the often awkward and complicated relationships between Greg and his parents and siblings with warmth, humor, and honesty. It touches on generational gaps, misunderstandings, and the push-pull of independence and authority that many families experience. Greg's parents are portrayed as well-meaning but sometimes out of touch, adding a layer of authenticity to the portrayal of family life. These interactions highlight the challenges of communication and empathy within families, and the film's lighthearted treatment invites viewers to reflect on their own family dynamics. This treatment of family life steers clear of idealization, instead offering a realistic, sometimes messy, but ultimately loving depiction that many viewers can identify with. The film also delves into the theme of identity and self-discovery, which is central to adolescent experience. Greg's attempts to figure out who he is and how he fits into the world echo broader societal conversations about identity formation, especially during a time when peer opinion feels overwhelming. Rather than presenting identity as a fixed or easily attained goal, the film embraces the trial-and-error nature of adolescence, complete with awkward failures and shifting loyalties. This candid portrayal acknowledges the complexities of growing up in a society that often expects conformity while simultaneously valuing individuality. By showing Greg's missteps and uncertainties, the film reassures young viewers that confusion and imperfection are part of the process, a message that resonates beyond the immediate story. Although the film does not tackle political issues head-on, it subtly engages with cultural norms and expectations. For instance, it critiques the emphasis society often places on popularity, outward appearances, and material possessions as measures of worth. Greg's frequent misadventures and social faux pas highlight the superficiality of these markers, suggesting that authenticity and personal growth matter more than external validation. This message aligns with ongoing cultural dialogues about self-esteem, the impact of social media, and the dangers of valuing image over substance. The film's understated treatment of these themes allows it to contribute to these conversations without overwhelming younger audiences or losing its comedic tone. Handling sensitive topics such as bullying and social exclusion with nuance is another way the film shines in its cultural commentary. Bullying isn't portrayed as an extreme or terrifying force, but rather as a series of social awkwardness, misunderstandings, and subtle cruelties that many kids face. This realistic depiction makes the subject approachable, encouraging empathy and understanding without frightening or alienating the audience. The humor woven throughout these moments helps defuse tension, making the film a safe space for kids to confront and think about these issues. This balance between humor and sensitivity exemplifies how the film tackles complex social problems in an accessible way. In terms of diversity and representation, the film reflects a typical suburban community without making diversity a central theme, which itself is a subtle commentary on the inclusivity of everyday life. The characters come from varied backgrounds and display different personalities, which adds to the realism and richness of the setting. This natural inclusiveness avoids tokenism or forced diversity, portraying a social environment where differences exist but don't dominate the narrative. This approach respects the audience's ability to recognize diversity as a normal and unremarkable part of life, subtly promoting acceptance and open-mindedness. Technology and media's influence on youth culture also appear as an undercurrent in the film. While Diary of a Wimpy Kid is set just before the explosion of smartphones and social media, Greg's interactions with video games, television, and other media hint at how these elements shape behavior, socialization, and identity. The film captures a transitional moment in cultural history, making it a time capsule of sorts that reflects the beginnings of digital influence on youth. This portrayal encourages viewers to consider how media consumption affects relationships, self-perception, and social interaction, themes that have only grown more relevant with time. The film's comedic tone plays a crucial role in its social commentary, using humor to highlight everyday absurdities and contradictions in human behavior. Much of the comedy arises from Greg's misunderstandings or exaggerated perceptions of social norms, prompting audiences to laugh at the universal awkwardness of growing up while subtly encouraging reflection on why certain societal expectations exist. This use of comedy as both entertainment and critique ensures that the film's commentary is engaging and approachable, making complex social issues digestible without losing depth. Consumer culture also makes a subtle appearance through scenes involving birthday parties, school fundraisers, and popular trends. These moments hint at how material possessions and social events often become proxies for status and acceptance among kids, reflecting broader societal concerns about consumerism and its impact on relationships and self-worth. The film presents these scenarios with a playful tone, inviting viewers to recognize the sometimes ridiculous nature of these dynamics while also questioning their importance. Ultimately, Diary of a Wimpy Kid excels at weaving social and cultural commentary into its narrative without overshadowing its entertainment value. The film respects its audience's intelligence by offering nuanced insights wrapped in humor and relatable storytelling. Diary of a Wimpy Kid possesses an extraordinary knack for emotionally engaging its audience, crafting a viewing experience that is as heartfelt as it is humorous. Right from the start, the film pulls viewers into the awkward, often chaotic world of Greg Heffley, inviting them to experience the highs and lows of adolescence through his eyes. This connection is no small feat. It requires a delicate balance between comedy and sincerity, and the film manages this with impressive skill. By blending laugh-out-loud moments with quiet, tender ones, it keeps audiences emotionally invested, drawing out a wide spectrum of feelings that resonate well beyond the runtime. The film's emotional resonance hinges heavily on its relatable portrayal of growing pains. Greg is not a flawless hero but a flawed, sometimes selfish and clueless kid trying to navigate a confusing social landscape. This authenticity makes him a character that viewers can both root for and laugh at, fostering a sense of intimacy and understanding. Audiences see in Greg's struggles their own experiences or those of people they know, whether it's the embarrassment of social blunders, the frustration of miscommunication, or the longing to fit in. This creates a shared emotional space where laughter is laced with empathy, and humor becomes a gateway to deeper feelings. Moments of pure comedy abound throughout the film, and they work exceptionally well to build audience engagement. Whether it's Greg's ill-fated attempts at popularity, his awkward interactions with peers, or the chaos unleashed during family outings, the film consistently delivers humor that feels both spontaneous and well-crafted. The comedic timing is precise, with visual gags, slapstick mishaps, and witty dialogue combining to keep viewers entertained and eager for more. These scenes don't just entertain, they also serve to lighten the emotional load, making the story accessible and enjoyable for audiences of all ages. However, the film doesn't limit itself to humor alone, it also offers poignant moments that hit home emotionally. Scenes where Greg feels isolated, misunderstood, or frustrated strike a universal chord, reminding viewers of the vulnerability inherent in growing up. These moments are handled with a subtlety that avoids melodrama, allowing feelings of loneliness or disappointment to emerge naturally from the narrative. This thoughtful emotional layering adds depth to the story and invites audiences to reflect on their own experiences with empathy and compassion. Excitement and surprise are additional elements that keep the audience hooked. The story unfolds with enough twists and unexpected turns, whether social, familial, or personal, to maintain a sense of anticipation. These moments inject energy into the narrative, preventing it from becoming predictable or stagnant. Viewers find themselves caught up in the tension of a school prank gone awry or the fallout from a misunderstood friendship, which adds a dynamic quality to the film's emotional rhythm. One of the reasons Diary of a Wimpy Kid connects so deeply is its invitation for viewers to inhabit Greg's perspective. The film's use of voiceover narration draws the audience into Greg's inner world, sharing his thoughts, insecurities, and observations with a candidness that feels almost like a conversation with a friend. This narrative device fosters intimacy and trust, making audiences feel included in Greg's journey rather than merely observers. The animated doodles and diary-style graphics further personalize the experience, adding charm and reinforcing the feeling that viewers are stepping inside Greg's mind. The film's appeal is also evident in its strong rewatchability. Its multi-layered humor and relatable situations encourage viewers to return, each time catching new details, appreciating subtle jokes, or gaining fresh insights into the characters. For younger audiences, the familiarity and comfort of revisiting Greg's world are soothing, while older viewers may enjoy the nostalgia and clever writing that reveal more with each viewing. This ongoing engagement is a testament to the film's depth and the strength of its emotional connections. Furthermore, Diary of a Wimpy Kid sparks conversations among viewers. Its scenarios, from friendship dilemmas to family squabbles, mirror real-life experiences that naturally lead to discussions. Whether among friends sharing their own awkward middle school stories or families reflecting on their relationships, the film serves as a springboard for dialogue, deepening its impact beyond the screen. These conversations reinforce the film's themes and encourage viewers to engage more thoughtfully with the issues it raises. The emotional engagement is supported by a carefully calibrated tone that balances humor and heart. This equilibrium means the film never feels overly sentimental or frivolous. Instead, it reflects the complexity of adolescence, which is a mix of joy, confusion, hope, and disappointment. By honoring these multifaceted emotions, the film creates a rich emotional texture that resonates deeply with audiences, capturing the essence of growing up in a way that feels both authentic and entertaining. Pacing and structure also play a crucial role in sustaining engagement. The film moves briskly, with scenes flowing smoothly between comedic chaos and quieter, more introspective moments. This rhythm mirrors the unpredictable tempo of middle school life, keeping viewers emotionally invested without overwhelming or boring them. The well-timed comedic relief ensures that heavier moments land without dragging the mood down, making the overall experience lively and emotionally satisfying. The performances bring further vitality to the film's emotional connection. The actors imbue their roles with warmth, vulnerability, and naturalism, allowing characters to feel fully realized and relatable. The chemistry among the cast, especially between Greg and his best friend Rowley, conveys the nuances of friendship with authenticity and humor. This genuine portrayal invites audiences to empathize with the characters' joys and frustrations, deepening the emotional impact. In addition, the film's setting and visual style help ground its emotional resonance. The suburban school environment, family home, and community spaces feel familiar and lived in, enhancing the realism of Greg's experiences. The blend of live action with animated diary elements creates a distinctive atmosphere that reflects Greg's imaginative and often chaotic perspective, drawing viewers further into his world. Ultimately, Diary of a Wimpy Kid succeeds in creating a powerful emotional connection with its audience through its honest, humorous, and nuanced portrayal of adolescence. It makes viewers laugh, cringe, empathize, and reflect, crafting a multidimensional experience that entertains while touching on universal human experiences. This emotional engagement is what keeps the film memorable, beloved, and relevant, encouraging viewers to revisit Greg's world and share it with others, creating a lasting bond that transcends generations. When you start comparing Diary of a Wimpy Kid to other films in the same genre, family comedies, coming-of-age stories, and adaptations of popular kids' books, you quickly realize this movie has carved out its own unique niche. On the surface, it might seem like just another middle school comedy about the trials and tribulations of growing up, but dig a little deeper and you'll find it stands apart in ways that make it memorable and distinctive. Unlike many other films aimed at younger audiences that either go for broad slapstick humor or overly idealized portrayals of childhood, Diary of a Wimpy Kid offers a more nuanced, honest, and often hilarious glimpse into the messy, awkward realities of adolescence. Take classic coming-of-age movies like The Sandlot, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, or The Breakfast Club. These films, while iconic and beloved, often focus on a particular event or group dynamic with a heavier dose of nostalgia or teenage rebellion. Diary of a Wimpy Kid differs by zooming in on the everyday, the mundane, and the small social skirmishes that make up middle school life. It's less about big heroic moments or grand adventures and more about navigating the confusing maze of friendships, family expectations, and self-identity on a micro level. This slice-of-life approach offers a freshness that feels immediate and highly relatable to its core audience, especially kids currently living those experiences. Comparing it to other family-friendly franchises like Percy Jackson, the Middle School series, or Alex Rider, which lean heavily on fantasy, action, or high-stakes drama, Diary of a Wimpy Kid keeps its feet firmly planted in reality. This isn't a film about battling monsters or secret missions. It's about dealing with bullies, embarrassing parents, and the social pecking order at school. That groundedness is part of its charm and sets it apart. It acknowledges that sometimes the biggest battles in a kid's life are the ones played out in classrooms, hallways, and family dinners. Visually and stylistically, the film breaks away from many of its peers by creatively blending live action with animated elements drawn from the book's signature doodles and diary entries. This hybrid approach isn't just a gimmick. It serves as an extension of Greg's personality and point of view, making the storytelling feel personal and immersive. While most family comedies stick to a straightforward live-action format, this blend gives Diary of a Wimpy Kid a unique flavor that fans of the book instantly recognize and appreciate. It's a clever way to translate the graphic novel's voice to the screen, making the film stand out visually and tonally from others in the genre. Looking at the director's other work or family-oriented films of the time, Diary of a Wimpy Kid strikes a balance between humor and heart that many similar films struggle to achieve. It doesn't lean too heavily on slapstick or sentimentality, but blends both in a way that feels natural and earned. This balance allows it to appeal to a wide audience, from kids who enjoy the silly antics to adults who can appreciate the more subtle social commentary and character nuances. It shows a maturity in storytelling that's sometimes missing in films aimed at younger viewers. When considering other adaptations of children's literature, many films face the challenge of capturing the spirit of the original books while making the story accessible to a broader audience. Diary of a Wimpy Kid succeeds here by retaining the protagonist's quirky voice and perspective without watering down the humor or heart. Unlike some adaptations that sanitize characters or simplify plots, this film embraces Greg's flaws and complexities, delivering a more authentic and faithful rendition. This respect for the source material helps it avoid common pitfalls that often plague book-to-film adaptations, making it a satisfying experience for fans and newcomers alike. Genre-wise, The film is neither a typical high-energy comedy nor a didactic coming-of-age story. Instead, it sits comfortably in a middle ground where it can explore awkwardness, social challenges, and family dynamics with a light touch and genuine insight. It embraces the uncomfortable moments that define adolescence rather than glossing over them, which adds a layer of realism often absent in comparable films. This approach gives it a tone that's both funny and sincere, making the experience richer and more engaging. The humor in Diary of a Wimpy Kid also sets it apart. While many family films rely heavily on slapstick or jokes that appeal only to children, this film layers its comedy with wit, irony, and situational humor that works on multiple levels. There are visual gags and physical comedy that kids will enjoy, but also dry, self-aware narration and clever lines that adults can appreciate. This dual-layered humor widens its appeal and keeps the film engaging for viewers of all ages. In terms of pacing and storytelling, the film keeps things moving briskly without rushing through character development or emotional beats. It mirrors the unpredictable and often chaotic pace of middle school life, which helps maintain viewer interest and emotional involvement. The well-timed comedic sequences interspersed with quieter, reflective moments provide a rhythm that feels natural and satisfying, unlike some genre counterparts that swing too hard in either direction. Ultimately, when you stack Diary of a Wimpy Kid against similar films, it's clear that it offers something both fresh and familiar. It respects genre conventions enough to satisfy expectations, but also twists them with its unique visual style, authentic voice, and relatable storytelling. It captures the chaotic, uncomfortable, and hilarious reality of growing up in a way that's rarely done with such honesty and charm. This blend of innovation and tradition makes it not just another kids' movie but a standout entry that resonates deeply with its audience and holds its own against even the most beloved films in its category. At first glance, Diary of a Wimpy Kid might seem like a lighthearted and straightforward comedy about middle school woes, but when you peel back the layers, you uncover a tapestry rich with symbolism and metaphor that deepens the storytelling and amplifies its themes in subtle yet powerful ways. These elements work quietly in the background, adding texture and emotional resonance to what might otherwise appear as a simple, humorous coming-of-age tale. They invite the audience to engage more thoughtfully, rewarding viewers who are willing to look beyond the surface with a richer, more immersive experience. One of the central symbolic anchors of the film is Greg's diary itself, which goes far beyond being just a prop or a storytelling device. It embodies Greg's inner world, his thoughts, fears, hopes, and frustrations, and represents a personal refuge where he attempts to bring order to the chaos around him. The diary is a metaphor for self-expression and identity formation, capturing the universal struggle of adolescence to understand oneself amid confusion and change. Through its pages, Greg tries to control his narrative, but the very act of writing also reveals his vulnerabilities and imperfections, reminding viewers that growing up is messy and uncertain. The diary's presence constantly reminds us that beneath every exterior, there is a complex interior world yearning to be understood. Recurring motifs related to social status and popularity weave throughout the film, turning seemingly trivial schoolyard interactions into metaphors for larger human experiences. The relentless pursuit of popularity and the fear of social rejection serve as stand-ins for the universal desire to belong and be accepted. Middle school, with its shifting alliances, unspoken rules, and power dynamics, becomes a microcosm of society at large, where everyone is jockeying for position, sometimes at the expense of their own authenticity. The way Greg navigates this environment, with schemes, compromises, and occasional failures, mirrors the complex dance of identity and social negotiation that defines adolescence and, to some extent, adulthood as well. Visually, the film employs numerous subtle cues to deepen these themes. Spaces like Greg's bedroom or the crowded school hallways are often depicted as cramped and cluttered, evoking the feeling of confinement that many adolescents experience. These environments symbolize the pressure cooker atmosphere of growing up, where personal freedom feels limited by expectations from family, peers, and society. Conversely, moments when Greg retreats into imagination or private reflection, such as daydream sequences or doodling in his diary, are often accompanied by more open, lighter visuals. These contrasts act as metaphors for the push and pull between restriction and freedom, external demands, and internal desires. The character of Rowley Jefferson serves as a living metaphor for innocence and authenticity, acting as a counterpoint to Greg's more self-serving and sometimes manipulative tendencies. Rowley's unfiltered kindness and naivete highlight the tension between staying true to oneself and adapting to social pressures. Their friendship is a recurring symbol of loyalty, trust, and the challenges that come with balancing personal integrity against the need for acceptance. Through their interactions, the film explores the metaphorical crossroads faced by many adolescents, whether to conform, rebel, or find a middle ground. The school setting itself transcends its role as mere backdrop, transforming into a symbolic arena for the rites of passage that define youth. Classrooms, lockers, and cafeteria tables are more than physical spaces. They stand for the social hierarchy, challenges, and triumphs that populate Greg's world. This metaphorical battlefield underscores how everyday environments become stages for profound emotional and psychological growth. The school's ever-changing social landscape mirrors life's unpredictable nature, emphasizing that growing up involves continual adaptation and resilience. Food and snacks emerge as surprisingly potent symbols throughout the film, representing comfort, reward, and sometimes failure. Greg's obsession with snacks isn't just about hunger or pleasure, it signifies a search for small, tangible joys amid the uncertainties of adolescence. Food-related mishaps often symbolize larger emotional challenges, turning moments of social embarrassment or disappointment into relatable, sensory experiences that connect with audiences on a primal level. The way food is woven into the narrative becomes a metaphor for the balance between indulgence and control, satisfaction and frustration. The animated doodles and sketches that intersperse the film are rich in symbolic meaning, functioning as visual metaphors for Greg's internal thought processes. These illustrations amplify his emotions, exaggerate real-life situations, and provide insight into his personality. They reflect the imaginative ways children make sense of their experiences, transforming confusion or pain into humor and creativity. The doodles symbolize the resilience of imagination, acting as a protective buffer against the harsher realities Greg faces. Greg's numerous plans and schemes throughout the film also carry metaphorical weight. Each failed or partially successful plan represents a step in his personal growth, a trial and error process that echoes the universal journey of learning through mistakes. These narrative arcs highlight themes of perseverance and self-discovery, reminding audiences that failure is not just inevitable but essential to maturing. This metaphor extends to a broader life lesson about embracing imperfection and resilience. Family dynamics in the film are layered with symbolic significance as well. Greg's parents, while often exasperating, symbolize the generational gap and the complexities of parental love. Their attempts to guide and discipline Greg sometimes clash with his desire for independence, creating tension that mirrors the universal struggle between authority and autonomy. The family home serves as a metaphorical anchor, both a source of security and a site of conflict, reflecting the dual nature of familial relationships during adolescence. Even the film's use of color and lighting carries symbolic meaning. Scenes capturing Greg's isolation, embarrassment, or defeat often utilize muted tones and shadows, visually expressing his emotional state. In contrast, moments of happiness, friendship, and imagination are bathed in warmer, brighter hues, symbolizing hope, connection, and personal growth. These visual metaphors subtly guide the audience's emotional journey, enhancing the storytelling without overt explanation. All these symbolic elements combine to elevate Diary of a Wimpy Kid from a simple comedic romp to a layered exploration of growing up. They enrich the narrative by adding depth and emotional complexity, encouraging viewers to reflect on their own experiences and the universal challenges of adolescence. The film's recurring motifs and metaphors invite audiences to return and discover new insights with each viewing, rewarding attentive eyes with a deeper understanding of the story's heart. This hidden artistry transforms the film into a multidimensional tale, one that is funny, relatable, and resonant with the timeless struggle to find one's place in the world amidst the chaos of youth. Diary of a Wimpy Kid stands as the cornerstone of a franchise that has since become a defining portrayal of the awkward, hilarious, and sometimes painful journey through adolescence. As the very first film adaptation of Jeff Kinney's immensely popular book series, it doesn't just tell a self-contained story, it lays down the essential blueprint for all the installments that would follow. This initial movie introduces viewers to the world of Greg Heffley and his misadventures, setting the tone, visual style, and character dynamics that shape the entire franchise's identity. Its impact is foundational, establishing the humor, heart, and unique blend of live action with animated diary entries that fans have come to love and expect. When you watch the film with the larger franchise in mind, you can see how it functions as a critical launching pad. It introduces the core cast, Greg, Rowley, his family, and classmates, and presents the social environment and conflicts that the later movies revisit and expand. Greg's complex friendship with Rowley, his attempts to climb the social ladder, and his often bumbling navigation of family life create a rich tapestry of character relationships and themes. These elements don't just appear as isolated incidents, they are threads woven through the series, evolving as Greg grows up and faces new challenges. This continuity makes the franchise feel like a genuine coming-of-age saga rather than disconnected episodes. Beyond establishing the characters and tone, the film also captures a snapshot of early 2010s youth culture that grounds the franchise in a specific moment in time. The depiction of technology use, school life, fashion, and social norms reflects the era's reality, providing a cultural context that fans who grew up during this period instantly recognize. At the same time, the movie's themes of friendship, insecurity, and identity are timeless, allowing it to resonate across different generations. This balance between capturing a historical moment and addressing universal experiences gives the franchise lasting appeal and relevance. From a broader perspective, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid film arrived during a surge in popularity of graphic novels and illustrated children's books. By adapting this format into a hybrid live-action and animation style, the movie was innovative in bringing the distinctive voice and visuals of the books to life. This approach not only appealed to existing fans but also introduced a wider audience to a new kind of storytelling that blends written narrative with engaging visual elements. The film's success helped pave the way for future adaptations of graphic novels, signaling a shift in how children's literature could be translated to the screen. The inaugural movie also set a standard for how humor and emotional depth can coexist in family entertainment. It showed that stories about the everyday, often awkward experiences of kids don't have to be purely comedic or overly sentimental. They can be both funny and heartfelt, messy and meaningful. This tonal balance became a hallmark of the franchise, influencing not only its sequels but also inspiring other films in the genre to embrace a more nuanced portrayal of growing up. Looking at the film within the wider cultural landscape, it aligns with early 21st century family movies that began to depict adolescence with more honesty and realism. Instead of glossing over the challenges of growing up or presenting a sanitized version of youth, Diary of a Wimpy Kid dives into the uncomfortable, confusing, and sometimes embarrassing moments that define the middle school experience. This shift toward authenticity reflects broader cultural trends valuing self-awareness and relatability, positioning the film as both a product and influencer of its time. The movie's success also helped expand the franchise beyond just films and books. It laid the groundwork for a multimedia phenomenon that includes animated adaptations, video games, merchandise, and interactive content. By capturing the spirit of the book so effectively, the film fostered a strong fan base eager to engage with Greg Heffley's world across different platforms. This cross-media presence highlights how a single film can act as a keystone, supporting a diverse ecosystem of storytelling and fan interaction. In terms of narrative contribution, the film introduces many of the recurring storylines and character arcs that later installments revisit and develop. Greg's ongoing quest for popularity, his complicated friendship with Rowley, and his family's quirks are not one-off jokes but foundational elements that evolve with each sequel. This narrative continuity creates a satisfying sense of progression and growth, encouraging viewers to invest emotionally over multiple films. It's a journey through adolescence told in chapters, with the original movie serving as the essential prologue. The film also demonstrates how to respect source material while adapting it for a different medium. By retaining the diary's distinctive voice through narration and visual cues, the movie honors the book's spirit and humor. This fidelity to the original helped maintain credibility with fans and set a standard for future adaptations, emphasizing that staying true to the heart of the story is key to a successful transition from page to screen. Finally, Diary of a Wimpy Kid can be seen as part of a larger trend in entertainment that embraces the imperfect, often awkward realities of growing up. It belongs to a lineage of stories that move away from idealized portrayals and instead celebrate the humor and humanity in everyday struggles. This positioning within cultural and cinematic history gives the film a significance beyond just its entertainment value. It marks a shift in how youth stories are told, reflecting and shaping audience expectations for years to come. In all these ways, the film is much more than the sum of its parts. It is a crucial starting point that defines a franchise, captures a moment in cultural history, and influences the broader landscape of family and adolescent storytelling. Its legacy is seen not just in the sequels and spin-offs it inspired, but in the way it reshaped expectations for films about growing up, making Diary of a Wimpy Kid a truly seminal work in its genre. Diary of a Wimpy Kid was produced with a relatively modest budget, especially when compared to the sprawling special effects-laden blockbusters that dominate the box office. Yet, this lean budget didn't hold the film back from delivering a polished, engaging, and visually distinctive product that effectively captured the spirit of Jeff Kinney's popular book series. The production team made savvy decisions to allocate resources where they would have the most impact, prioritizing casting, authentic school and home settings, and the clever integration of animated diary doodles, resulting in a film that looked much more expensive than it actually was. The creative blend of live action and animation served as a cost-effective storytelling tool, adding charm and originality without the need for costly CGI or elaborate set pieces. From a production standpoint, this strategic use of funds allowed the filmmakers to focus on character-driven storytelling and relatable humor, which were the core strengths of the source material. Instead of competing on spectacle, Diary of a Wimpy Kid succeeded by creating an intimate, authentic portrayal of middle school life that resonated with audiences. The relatively low production cost meant the film was less pressured to become a massive blockbuster and could instead build success gradually through word of mouth and family appeal. When it came to box office performance, the movie exceeded expectations for a film of its scale. It wasn't a runaway blockbuster smashing records overnight, but it performed solidly, making back its budget comfortably and proving to studios that there was a viable market for this kind of smart, character-focused family comedy. Its financial success was significant enough to greenlight sequels, which further expanded the franchise and brought in additional revenue streams. This measured but steady profitability underscored how films don't necessarily need to be mega-budget tentpoles to make a lasting impact or generate substantial earnings. Marketing played an instrumental role in the film's financial outcome. The campaign cleverly capitalized on the existing fan base of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books by highlighting the film's faithful adaptation of the book's unique diary format and its humorous take on the trials of growing up. By focusing promotional efforts on both kids familiar with the series and families looking for relatable, wholesome entertainment, the marketing team ensured the movie reached a broad demographic. The use of the distinctive doodle animations in trailers and posters created immediate visual recognition, which helped pique curiosity even among those who had not read the books. The positive reception from audiences amplified the film's financial performance. Families and preteens found the story genuinely funny and relatable, which encouraged repeat viewings and helped the movie sustain a strong box office presence beyond the initial release period. This enthusiastic audience response also translated into robust sales in the home entertainment market. DVDs, Blu-rays, and later digital downloads and streaming rights, boosting the film's long-term revenue well after its theatrical run ended. These additional revenue channels proved crucial, especially for family films, as they tend to have enduring appeal beyond the cinema. In terms of competition, Diary of a Wimpy Kid carved out a niche by focusing squarely on the middle school experience, a relatively underrepresented perspective in family films at the time. Unlike fantasy adventures or high-concept comedies, this movie's grounding in the awkwardness and challenges of everyday life allowed it to stand apart and attract a dedicated audience. This unique position helped maintain consistent interest, especially from kids who saw their own struggles reflected on screen. The film's budget and box office story also highlight a broader shift in the entertainment industry, where moderately budgeted films with strong storytelling and clear audience targeting can thrive alongside big-budget franchises. Its success challenged the notion that family movies must be costly spectacles to succeed financially. Instead, it demonstrated that authenticity, humor, and smart production choices could deliver both critical and commercial rewards. Moreover, Diary of a Wimpy Kid benefited from the rising popularity of the book series, which had already built a loyal and enthusiastic fanbase. This built-in audience gave the film a significant advantage, helping to ensure steady attendance and encouraging fan engagement. The synergy between the film and its literary source boosted visibility and created a feedback loop that benefited both mediums. The marketing strategy also leveraged the growing importance of social media and online communities, where fans shared their excitement and reviews, further amplifying the film's reach. This grassroots enthusiasm often translates into tangible box office gains, particularly for family and youth-oriented films that rely heavily on word of mouth. Financially, the movie's performance proved that a well-crafted adaptation with a moderate budget could open doors to expanded franchise opportunities, merchandise, and other ancillary markets. The strong financial footing established by the first film gave studios confidence to invest in sequels, animated specials, and tie-in products, transforming Diary of a Wimpy Kid from a single movie into a multi-platform franchise powerhouse. In sum, the relationship between the film's budget, production quality, marketing, and box office returns is a textbook example of how thoughtful resource management, targeted promotion, and genuine audience connection can combine to create a financially successful film without a blockbuster-sized budget. Diary of a Wimpy Kid demonstrated that with creativity and strategic planning, modestly budgeted family films can not only survive but thrive, laying the foundation for enduring franchises that continue to engage audiences and generate revenue across formats and years. If you're eager to step into the awkward, hilarious world of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, you'll be pleased to know there are numerous ways to watch this film, each offering a slightly different viewing experience to suit your preferences and lifestyle. Since its original theatrical release, Diary of a Wimpy Kid has become widely accessible across a variety of platforms, making it easy to find and enjoy whether you're a movie theater enthusiast, a streaming aficionado, or someone who prefers owning physical copies. For those who cherish the magic of the big screen, catching Diary of a Wimpy Kid in a theater setting remains the ultimate way to experience the film's humor and heart in full cinematic glory. Although its initial theatrical run is long behind us, some theaters occasionally host family movie nights or special screenings of beloved favorites, including popular family films like this one. Experiencing the laughter and reactions of a crowd, especially kids reacting to Greg Heffley's mishaps, adds a unique energy that makes the story come alive in a communal way. There's something about the expansive screen, immersive sound, and collective atmosphere that can make familiar scenes feel fresh and exciting all over again. If heading to the theater isn't convenient or you prefer the cozy familiarity of home viewing, streaming platforms are a fantastic option. Depending on your location and current distribution deals, Diary of a Wimpy Kid is often available on major streaming services, granting instant access for subscribers. Streaming the movie allows you to watch it on your schedule, pausing and rewinding to catch every quirky diary doodle or subtle character expression that might fly by unnoticed in a theater. This flexibility also means you can binge-watch the entire franchise, following Greg's evolving adventures without leaving your couch. The comfort of home viewing lets you fully immerse yourself in the humor and relatable middle school drama at your own pace. For those who prefer a bit more control or don't subscribe to streaming services, digital rental and purchase options are widely available across popular platforms such as Amazon Prime Video, Apple iTunes, Google Play Movies, and others. Renting Diary of a Wimpy Kid digitally is an excellent choice if you want a single viewing without a long-term commitment, while purchasing the film adds it to your permanent digital library for unlimited rewatching. The ability to watch on multiple devices, from smart TVs and computers to tablets and smartphones, means you can enjoy the movie wherever you go, whether it's a road trip, a cozy night in, or a quick break during a busy day. This accessibility broadens the film's reach, letting audiences connect with Greg's story anytime and anywhere. If you're a collector or someone who enjoys owning tangible media, the film is also available on DVD and Blu-ray. Physical copies provide a reliable internet-free way to watch the movie and often include exciting bonus features like behind-the-scenes footage, interviews with the cast and creators, deleted scenes, and perhaps even fun interactive elements related to the book series. These extras give fans a deeper appreciation of the filmmaking process and add value beyond the film itself. Having a physical copy also means you can build a personal collection of the entire Diary of a Wimpy Kid franchise, perfect for repeated family movie nights and sharing with friends. To get the most out of watching Diary of a Wimpy Kid, creating a fun and relaxed viewing environment can really enhance the experience. Watching with family or friends allows you to share laughs and bond over Greg's awkward school situations and family antics, making the humor and heart more impactful. Pairing the movie night with themed snacks or even reading a chapter or two of the book beforehand can make the story even more engaging and immersive. This approach helps highlight the clever blend of humor and life lessons that make the film memorable. No matter which method you choose, big screen, streaming, digital rental, or physical media, Diary of a Wimpy Kid offers a charming, relatable story that's well worth watching. Its unique mix of live-action and animated diary entries, coupled with its authentic portrayal of middle school trials and tribulations, ensures that it remains entertaining for both new viewers and longtime fans alike. The film's accessibility across platforms means you're never far from a chance to laugh at Greg's misadventures, appreciate the heartfelt moments, and revisit the awkward yet endearing journey of growing up. In the end, the best way to watch Diary of a Wimpy Kid depends on your viewing style and preferences, but whichever path you take, you'll find a film that's easy to enjoy and hard to forget. Its universal themes, clever storytelling, and memorable characters ensure that it's a perfect choice whenever you're in the mood for a movie that combines humor, heart, and the chaos of adolescence in a way that speaks to audiences of all ages.